Hi everybody, welcome to J&S Farms. Today I thought I would give you a tour of our rabbit area and kind of explain how I do things with my rabbits. Now if you're just looking to get into rabbits, you can make the venture as cheap or as expensive as you like. If you like really pretty cages and like everything to match, then you'll probably pay a pretty hefty price tag for that, but that's okay if that's what you want. These cages that you see here are either reclaimed or used from salvaged materials. And so these cages, we don't have hardly any money into them at all. Maybe the cost of the screws to put everything together. This cage we got for free. This one we built. Everything we used was reclaimed, or we got the material somewhere for free. This one was a free cage. We did have to put new partitions in it, so we did have to spend a little bit of money on that one, not very much. These cages here, we got these for free, and then we just built a frame with a roof on it. And then, excuse me, these guys are just in a temporary cage, and I made it kind of a temporary situation for them because I don't have any more cages for these guys. But another expense is feed and water bowls. You really can do whatever you like with as far as feed and water bowls. If it holds water and feed, it'll work. So usually the most expensive investment when you're going to go get into rabbits is the actual breeding stock themselves. That's just, kind of how it is. I started with 3 rabbits and have been keeping them and ever since. I do bring in new bucks every few years, so just to keep a diversity of bloodline going on. I like this. It's kind of an open air design for them. Air can flow through freely. It keeps them a lot cooler in the summer, and they just do better whenever they can stay cooler, as cool as possible in the summertime. Now in the wintertime, I take old feed bags and I cut them open, and I staple them to the backs of the cages and all around for a windbreak. This one, I don't know if you can see, that's the back there. I staple them along the back and along the sides for the windbreaks, and I do the same with this cage. This cage is empty in the wintertime because that's just a weaning cage. And then this cage here, I have a tarp that I attach in the back on both sides, and then I drape it over the top. And I'll drape it over the top at nights, and then during the day I'll kind of lean it back a little bit so that they get sunlight, so they can sun themselves in the wintertime and warm up. And then in like extra cold, like if it's going to be extremely cold, I take straw and I stuff their cages with it for extra warmth, and they will snuggle up in there. They'll usually eat it by morning time, but I'll shove it in there at night when it gets pretty bitterly cold. But for the most part, my rabbits stay pretty comfy here. I have my rabbits underneath these big old shade trees. It keeps them pretty. They're shaded from all angles. Now, over here, kind of in this area, there's no tree right there, so in the late afternoon, these guys in this cage here do get a little bit of sun, but it's usually a bit cooler when that does happen, so it's not too bad. Okay, the rabbits that I have my New Zealand buck right here, and this is my Flemish Giant buck, and then this guy, I raised him this year. He's from one of the first litters that I had, and he is a Flemish Giant New Zealand cross. And I also have some Californian does. I got rid of my Californian buck, but I will be getting a new one next year. And I try to make sure I have at least, usually the bucks, pure breed. And that way, they're 50% purebred. I think it makes them a little bit more consistent in their weaning weights and things like that. I keep a total of 10 does and 3 bucks usually is what I keep. Excuse me. And then what I'll do is I have 2 sets of 5 does, and I will breed the first set. Usually, the first set of 5 does, I'll usually breed them on February 1st. And they'll kindle sometime around the 3rd of March or so, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Now that first kindling, it's usually pretty cold, so I have a setup in my greenhouse, and I'll show you that whenever I do my greenhouse tour, where they actually help me out, and they sit underneath the benches that are in my greenhouse and fertilize right underneath there where I do grow some stuff in the greenhouse. Anyways, they kindle in there. It's warmer. I do keep a heater on them in there. I will usually not put the heater on until after the kits are born, so that the does are used to, you know, kind of the little bit warmer weather that's in there. You don't want to shock them and put them in there with heat after they've been used to the cold. So, and then the second round of does, the second 5, I will breed them around March 10th, and that way there's a week between weaning and kindling between the first and second waves of does that I breed. The last breeding I usually do is around the first week in August, just because I don't like to breed my does in the wintertime. I don't like messing with it in the wintertime. But you certainly can. You just have to kind of be careful of the cold weather. And really depending on the second kindling, what the weather's kind of acting like. Sometimes it's warm enough to let them go ahead and kindle outside. You just really got to pay attention to the weather. Sometimes my second kindling, I just go ahead and let them have it in the greenhouse. But you gotta watch, I kind of watch the weather to see what it's gonna do. Okay, so this set here, these are I use these as my kindling cages. These are 4 cages here, and then this one I use as a kindling cage as well. Just because the top is bigger and I can fit a box in there. So they kindle after the weather's, you know, warmer and nicer. They'll kindle in these, and then 4 weeks later I will wean the kits, and when I do that I move them over into this cage. This is my weaning cage, and they generally will stay in here for about 3 weeks. Yeah, for about 3 weeks. And then after that, these guys are just about ready to go into the finishing pen, which is the rabbit tractors, and you've seen those around or on some of the other videos. So after this pen, they go into the rabbit tractor. They stay in there for about 3 weeks or so. It just depends on growth and if I think they're ready to butcher. And then after that, once they're ready to butcher, they get butchered. And the cycle starts all over again. Excuse me. Oh my goodness. They're usually about 10 to 12 weeks old when we butcher them. Like I said, I just kind of go by size. And then also, I have rabbits coming up behind them, so I've got to be mindful of that. Now we get what we want, and we get it in the freezer, or I'll can some, all the rabbits that we want. And then after that I start selling the fryers. And around here there's a pretty good market for it, and it's pretty easy to sell them. So we do, and that kind of helps pay for the feed cost and upkeep of the rabbits. We also, sometimes we'll keep the pelts if I want to make something out of them. But normally I don't really keep the pelts. When we do butcher, their livers, kidneys, hearts, lungs, the good parts of the intestines the dogs love to eat, so that's kind of some free dog food. And then their manure. Their manure is excellent fertilizer for your garden. The reason there's not too much underneath there is because I have taken some and put it around our pumpkins. So there's not too much under there right now. But I do rotate my does. As soon as I wean these kits off of these does, they'll come over here to this cage. This is my last breeding. These guys are gonna kindle, I believe, around, if I remember correctly, around the 19th. I have to look at my calendar, I'm pretty sure. So these guys will go over here. This last, I only bred 4 this last go around. But they'll come over here, and then these does will just swap cages. And then I'll just have my last round of bunnies for the year, and then I will be done with that. These guys here, I kept them back for breeders. I'll probably sell these as breeding stock. They're nice little does, so I usually don't have a problem selling any of my breeding stock. Most people that come to look at them, they like them quite a bit. So anyway, this is my rabbit area, and that's kind of how I manage my rabbits. And like I said, you can make your rabbit venture as cheap or as expensive as you like. You know, if you want registered stock, by all means, get you some registered stock. These animals they're crossbred, and then the babies are hybrid, and they grow pretty well. Anyway, this is my my rabbit area, and I hope you guys enjoyed, learned a little something. If you got any questions, by all means, let me know, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.